Hi guys, so in this video I'm covering the basing of the models. I could have done edge highlighting and final details as the next step, but I actually want to get these models to a tabletop standard as soon as possible, and doing the basing next will accomplish that. So I put Gulfoil Brown down. I use an airbrush to give myself a nice smooth finish rather than a slightly textured look when you use a paintbrush. I also then, because of that, had to use a little bit of plasticard just to block out the model and protect it while I was putting it down. So all that's left now is to take the GW Stirland Mud, which is the texture paint, and just apply that to the top of the base. This saves me the hassle of having to put down the kind of old-fashioned technique of using kind of sand and PVA glue to create the texture and then paint on top of it. I also just put the Stirland Mud down. I then don't actually bother with any kind of highlight or washes or dry brushing on top of it. And that's because I kind of want a very kind of wet looking kind of real trench warfare style look. And I find actually dry brushing it makes it look too dry. And again, it's also a really big time saver. So it's just super handy just putting this on and not having to worry with anything else. So here is the finished look with the Stirland Mud applied. What I actually used was the GW spatula, which was really good for scooping out the texture from the pot and applying it to the base. Using kind of big clumps, I could quickly apply it, and what I would do is I'd put that clump down into an area away from the boots and the rest of the model. Once that was down and I did it sort of pretty much for the front and the back, I could then switch over to the smaller end of the spatula. This would allow me to just sort of shift around the texture, getting it up close to the boots, being careful not to get it on the rest of the model. The main thing here is to give it a really uneven finish here, so you want to kind of constantly be moving it around. You don't want it too smooth or flat. You want to shift it right up to the boot. You don't want to bury it and completely cover it, but actually if you sort of pile it up to the sides and all the way around, it gives the effect that he's sunken in slightly and that the mud's quite fresh and loose. As you can see, it actually looks quite realistic. It's got a bit of a shine on it still. This is completely dry. It looks a lot more sort of wet as you've just applied it, and then that kind of disappears as the texture dries off. I think it's perfectly fine at the moment. It doesn't really need any highlighting or washes, and as this is sort of a bit of a speed process for this section, you can kind of skip that over, because once the texture's down, it's good enough for your tabletop standard and ready to game. The next video I'll be covering slightly more detail, edge highlighting and some transfers. So keep watching, and until then, take care.